Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tharsis. This time we'll be having another normal run with Joy, Kayla, Pacal, and Jean. Pretty sure Jean is male, but yeah, I was watching one of Bear Taffy's videos, and I was like, and he was wondering whether Jean was male or female, and I was just like, well, yeah. Anyway, he looks male, so we'll go with that for now, barring all whatever like gender social justice thing that I don't really care about, but happy to respect when people point it out. So, nevertheless, let's just keep going with this. So, Joy, or when we Joy first to finish up the smaller thing, which was I don't quite remember what the problem was, but it wasn't that big if I got it fixed pretty quickly. So, with the -1 health to all in the greenhouse, which is actually not that much of a contentious issue, mainly because it's -1 health all. And everyone's got at least 3 or 4 health, so it's not really that much of a problem. Nevertheless, it's good to sort of just be able to work on it, even if I'm not able to repair it completely. And but I've had some bad luck with stasis dice, and so as you can see, I'm probably just end up banking them for research and then just hoping for better rolls with some of the other dice. So we managed to banking a 5 and then a 4 and a 6, which is very good progress at the time being. And as always, it's always good to finish up the first week having repaired all the modules, especially with all the crews. So, end of the week. +1 through or -1 dice, which is actually I was actually thinking, yeah, +1 through is actually a net increase because you lose 2 dice, but you get a piece of food, which is 3 dice, and even though it's basically just a reallocation or redistribution of dice among certain people. So, since at the moment the captain's probably one of the most important people in the fact that he can actually give 1 dice to everyone else in the same module, and that I had 3 people in the same module, including the captain, it makes sense to go with the captain first and repair the greenhouse, and with with a lucky dice roll, I might add, and to do just that. So with the 3, I'm actually was wondering if I could actually put that in food or research project, and I sort of just decided because I had fixed the greenhouse that I will probably just not worry about food just yet, because chances are unlikely that I will have enough spare dice to try and go for an attempt at making food, because generally the problem with making food is that you need 2 identical dice to get 1 piece of food, which is quite an investment that really means that you can only really have certain people roll for food. So a double injury, which is some damage on Pacal, certainly not very comforting for him, I dare say. But thankfully we are able to repair the the operation center. I was going to call it the stress center because it's the place where you reduce stress. That makes sense in either way. But thankfully, with both Jing and Pacal, we've repaired the 2 damaged modules, and as such, we've got a bit of free reign with join Kayla, so our technician and our doctor. So one of the things I realized that throughout this game is that if you've got someone who's low on dice, preferably 2 or 3 dice, it's actually a pretty good idea to put them in the life support center, because you only need 1 dice to replenish 2 dice. So here with Kayla, it made sense for me to attempt to refill some dice, and taking advantage of Kayla's health module was not a major issue. And here I've just sort of made a mistake in sort of just thinking, oh, I could probably do this with Joy as well, without realizing that I needed an identical dice. And so you can see the pause in my playing here where I just realized my mistake and just re-rolled again and hopefully aim to get something else. But thankfully we got a piece of research. Thankfully, we've got some research to back us all up, so by using the supplements, we were able to not put that number 1 dice to waste. Alright, it's the end of the second week, and honestly, our options are looking pretty good. I was banking quite a fair amount of ship. Actually, not that much ship pile actually, but I was like thinking, well, the minus dice is definitely a problem, so it would make more sense to go for the assist, because with everyone having a large amount of dice, it did not seem like that much of an issue to actually bank up on our ship hull or our ship's HP. But here we've got a lot of injury situations, which can definitely be alarming. So since we've got 2 people in the life support module, it makes sense to go with the captain first again, so that everyone else gets a piece of the dice. if possible. But of course, we would like to focus on repairing the entire module first, which I did not really do with that much luck. And I think that here again I realized that I've completely forgot that I was aiming to hopefully boost Kayla and Joy with a single dice each. But nevertheless, taking a look at all that, we can actually put all these dice into research. And yes, especially using the health kits, especially with the fact that we've got a lot of injury dice rolls in each of these modules. So giving the whole crew 1 health is definitely very useful. The one thing I noticed is that with some of the research components, like the smaller research upgrades, like the one small kit, 1 health, 1 crew, it's not as efficient because you only need each 1 for 1 health, but you only need 2 additional dice to make it 1 for the rest of the crew, which is 4 people. So obviously the 3 dice for 1 health for everyone is a bit more efficient. That was quite the mouthful, which is a little embarrassing, but here we managed to repair the life support module, and the doctor managed to give everyone else in the same module some extra help, so that should allow them to survive some of some possible injury rolls in the 2 remaining modules. So with that, it probably makes sense to deal with the greenhouse with Joy, since rolling 8 with 2 dice is a bit of a stretch, but not completely impossible. So with a 5, we've got 3 remaining. That means we've got a 1 in 2 chance of actually completely healing the module, which we ended up using duct tape for anyway. So that worked for us pretty easily. Unfortunately, we rolled a 6, which was the only dice we didn't need for our research, but thankfully we still had options. And here I actually chose to shuffle our research projects, because I was basically thinking with that one dice for 1 health for 1 person, it was not efficient, so I thought, and I was thinking the other options were not as efficient either, so I thought, okay, let's just shuffle that. So Pacal is doing a great job of repairing the flight control, and if we even get 1 ship hull with that as well, and rolling the 1 again, well, we've always got research to put that into. I think if you get a good roll of research, it's definitely worth taking advantage of that, and especially when you got people with multiple dice. So here there is 7 weeks to Mars, and this one was, I chose the food because I basically wanted to top Joy up, and that once actually stress can actually managing stress is a bit tricky sometimes, but and it's very easy to ignore in the first couple of rounds, but when you actually manage to keep the stress levels down, it's actually pretty beneficial. One thing I've noticed is that you may not necessarily have to keep stress down on everyone all the time, and that you can actually keep stress down on just like 1 or 2 people in order to at least have a reasonably good option at the end of that next week. So with 7 weeks to Mars, I'm just taking a look now. We've got a 14 with 2 void dice ABS fail, both of them doing hull damage. So obviously, hull damage is definitely our most important thing that we want to focus on this week. Thankfully, with a bunch of assistance, our doctor is able to heal our, hopefully? Yes, no, 5 and 3 injury, well, with 1 injury. Of course, this was a very, very weird situation, because if I put both in, it's somewhat inefficient, but if I didn't, then I wouldn't repair the module entirely, so... But as you can see, I chose to put the 5 in the research project, probably because I figured that I could put another person in there, hopefully harvest some food at the same time, because I only really needed 1 additional dice, but an unfortunate void has sort of thrown our plans to do a bit of disarray, so the 5 dice goes into repair, and we take advantage of the double ones to harvest a piece of food, which would definitely be useful for the next couple of weeks going on forwards, depending on when we actually use it. So moving on to the laboratory, we get a very unlucky roll with two double 2s, which get voided away, and as such, getting a 6 and a 3, which is sufficient enough for a 4 dice roll to get rid of the ABS fail in the laboratory. But nevertheless, Pacal comes to the rescue once again, and we get some additional ship HP as well as some dice put towards research. So all in all, I dare say we haven't had any major setbacks thus far, and I do realize that if a game doesn't really have that many major setbacks, it's probably not that interesting because I suppose one of the more exciting things about watching someone play is especially how they deal with certain setbacks. So it's 6 weeks to Mars, and I chose not to cannibalize the remains of our dead crewmate just yet, mainly because I felt it was survivable enough, and like say if I still had a damage module by that week, then I definitely would have considered like feeding the remains to some of the crew. But as that was not the case, there was really not much to worry about in my opinion. So going first with the captain, I had the opportunity to give dice to both Pacal and Joy, but that didn't really I either overlooked it or didn't really think too much of it. But Joy gets a double 2 with an injury, which is certainly not very healthy. That probably didn't seem right, but nevertheless, another injury meant that I probably should not roll again. Well, thankfully I can't actually roll again, so with the 2, with that not going to waste, I decided to use the quick patch and just so that I can bank the 2 in. It's sometimes it can be a bit tricky to decide whether you want to try and save dice for research or whether you want to use research options in order to whether you want to use research options in order to just clear dice and to make sure dice is not wasted, or whether you really want to save up for like a 6 dice research option. I've sort of been thinking about that, and I've been thinking, well, 6 dice research options are good, but the problem, another more injury dice on Pacal. But thankfully, we've kept everyone topped up with enough HP to survive these kinds of situations. So back to the research thing, it's definitely a bit of a tricky decision sometimes, and the main problem is that if you try to save for like a 5 or 6 research point piece of research, it's very you're obviously relying on some degree of luck for the extra dice to actually be like for the extra dice to fill in the gaps that you have. So yeah, that's definitely a tricky thing to think about. So here's the end of week 5. It took a while deciding, but thankfully decided to take the extra food, which we managed to top Kayla off with. And here, I think this is where I decided to cannibalize the remains of our dead crewmate. Yes, because I was thinking, okay, this is we're around the midway point. It's probably important enough to make sure everyone's topped off, so just to make sure that we can comfortably deal with what comes on. So with the 19, 25, and 15 repair damage in total, that was definitely a good choice to make, although reducing the stress level is certainly something that would be important to keep in mind for this week. Thankfully, we've got 2 research projects that can minimize stress, and with a low level number of dice enough such that we can basically use it to ensure that our current dice, or to ensure that some dice don't go to waste. So I've been taking a while trying to think about, okay, yes, I probably have to reduce stress, but if I can't quite move anyone in there right now because they will otherwise take damage, so it probably makes sense to put like certain people into to repair some module components such that we can minimize the stress. So with another dice disappearing into the void, we've got Kayla attempting to probably repair her place of specialization, which as you can see is the medical bay, but with another unlucky roll, 2 stasis dice, definitely not much luck riding on us at this time being. So, and especially with double 2s, meaning that it was likely one dice will have to go to waste, but thankfully we got a good roll on our research project, so reducing the stress of everyone by 10%, and then a single dice hack assist, which would definitely be useful for everyone else pretty much, because one thing especially when you're going with Joy is that you can definitely take advantage of the fact that she gives 2 assists when you roll a 5 or above, because the assists also apply to everyone else. So it's definitely not something that you want to So it's definitely something that you can sort of just keep in mind. But yeah, we've got another double 2, which means they're locked into stasis and therefore are not really all that useful anymore. So that definitely was some stroke of bad luck there. But so it makes sense to put the twos into repair and not really reroll the research, because I really wanted to keep the sedatives around, and yet another void really giving me a bit of a tough time in actually figuring out what to do. So with Joy, a single dice remaining, and it went to waste. I shouldn't be too depressed, there's only 1 dice. Could have been worse, really, especially when you get a really bad roll. Some damage for Pacal, that made me extremely nervous, but thankfully with the double 3s, that means we could actually attribute some stuff to ship repair, even though we only need 1 more additional point for maximum, so it makes sense to just really completely repair the module that Pacal was on. So rolling a 2, unfortunately, we didn't get much luck with the research. So that too probably just ended up going to waste. So we've got a large fire in the greenhouse, which is definitely gonna be which definitely is gonna take a while to work through, especially with the massive injury. So here, this is where I'm sort of just touching on how useful it is to keep the stress of at least 1 person below maximum, because it will allow you at least 1 good decision, or 1 like not as terrible decision. So it's this is where it's very easy to overlook stress management, but it's definitely useful if you can manage to edge in every once in a while. Because the one thing, especially when you move people to the stress module, I think it's not the laboratory, can't quite remember, or the command center. One thing you can definitely do is that when you have someone who needs to revise stress, you try and make sure that your research is clean, and that person also has an ability in which they can so like basically like how Pacal has his repair mechanic, so that you maximize the chances, or much rather you minimize the chance of your dice going to waste. So which here with Joy we're dealing with the pressure equalization valve failure in the life support module, and I see that I've finally decided to reduce the stress of everyone by 30%, which is actually a very lucky research project to be available at that time being. So with 3 assists, I'm sort of wondering who to go next, and I think, well, with Kayla, for example, I could certainly afford to take 1 damage and sort of deal with the deal with the command center and the antenna fail in the command center. But one thing to point out now is that since we've got 3 assists, we can definitely sort of send someone in with a bit more HP to deal with some of the more contentious points, which is probably not the right way to say, but nevertheless, Pacal only takes 1 assist, which means that we can bank other dice for research or give the ship some more HP. Unfortunately, with no 5 and above, that means we get some more dice attributed to research, which isn't always a bad thing. When you also consider the fact that we've got a 2 research point override, which gives us 2 assists, which would definitely be useful for dealing with the large fire in the greenhouse. So in the flight control, we finally get Kayla trying to repair it completely, and with a lucky roll of a double 6, we definitely have made some headway. So with another reroll and hoping and getting a 5 or above, we get a 1 and a 3, which basically means we may as well grab that assist. And now we have an MCC override, which is definitely very useful, definitely very handy. And yeah, I cannot stress how useful the MCC override is, because I could, it's like here I could probably put the 6 and 5 into there, or I can actually use the MCC override, actually use a lower dice, and then bank the 5 and 6 for research, or to give or to refresh the captain's dice. So yeah, we use the MCC override, put the 3 to repair the module entirely, and put the 5 and 6 into research, which, as I've said before, is definitely very useful, because it's very how do I want to say this? It's very easy to put it's very hard to put the 5 and 6 die into research, because you will probably always want to pick them to repair ship modules. So again, it's a very it's a resource management decision making thing that definitely should have some attention paid to. So it's 3 weeks to Mars, and it's start of another week. We this time fairly manageable modules, and of course the first one we should probably deal with is the one in the greenhouse, since that was probably, well, it's maybe not so much, but well, what I was thinking was that if we hadn't repaired that module, then it might take a bit of trouble for some people to travel to the further ones, and then and then I realized that's probably not an issue for Pacal and Joy, which were sort of in the middle from memory. But nevertheless, Kayla's come to the rescue, and in the same way that she probably treats the patients, she probably treats the plants of the greenhouse. I don't know where I was going with that, but here, Triple Force, I realized this was too great an opportunity to pass up, and I thought, okay, let's grab some food so that we don't need to worry about using the captain to refuel everyone's dice. Because if you look at the captain and Pacal and the fact that you use one dice every week, by then Jean and Pacal will have 2 dice at the end of the week in which we can use food to then replenish what they have. So I decided to go on with that, and with a fairly average roll in my opinion, we get Pacal to completely repair the I forgot the name of the component because I was not looking at it either. But moving on, so with the 10 and the 16, I think we're doing pretty well, and with Joy with 2 assists, the laboratory had a pretty good chance of being repaired completely, and we did so with our first dice roll, which is always a good thing, really. And we also re-rolled again for a chance of getting 2 assists, in hopefully getting the captain to help fix the greenhouse. Really, should be pretty straightforward with 3 dice, although 3, 6, and 8, which is not that bad, and it could be better. And I think from memory, that's why I put 1 in, because I didn't want to go for an extreme bad case scenario, and thankfully the second roll worked in our favor. The other thing to bear in mind is that with 2 dice, you have gosh, I couldn't remember the probability, but you basically have a high chance of rolling a 7 with 2 dice. So that was what I decided to gamble on, and that's what I ended up getting. So I'm distributing food to Pacal, Jean, and Joy, and even though there would be 1 dice going to waste with Joy, I figured that because it's 2 weeks to Mars, it's best to stay on top of everything as much as possible, because you definitely want to minimize any possible problems that you may have with the ship by the final week. So as such, we've got 3 fairly manageable modules, although the fact that they're stacked in a row does make it a bit difficult for some people to travel to the, let's say, the pilot center, and unless they're prepared to take damage. And with the captain, technician, and mechanic on fairly low HP is definitely something you want to be careful about, especially considering that the pilot station has 2 injury dice, and that the I'm terrible at memorizing the module names. The one which I've got to deploy over right now has got 1 injury dice, and it's also -1 health all, so it's definitely something to be a bit careful about. So it looks like I decided to go with the greenhouse first, because then I probably figured that it's low enough, and if I got enough good dice, I could definitely heal the component. And this was where I realized that this was where I was taken aback at the fact that I couldn't harvest food unless I have completely repaired the module. So here I was sort of just thinking about, okay, should I harvest through, or should I just make it into research? And I think one of the 3 dice went to the harvest food, because I didn't really have the research projects to really bank the I didn't have research projects to clear the dice basically. So here we join in the life support module. Looks like an odd decision, but now that I look back at it, I think it's pretty justified. And again, Joy regained the dice. I think if they wanted to make this game harder, they should make the life support module a little more inaccessible. But maybe it's because I'm finding it a little too easy to rely on the life support module whenever I have an individual that wants to refill the dice. So with Pacal and Kayla remaining, it's very easy to throw them straight into the pilot center and just hope that they are able to and just hope for a lucky dice roll. But I sort of decided against that and thought, you know, I could probably put Pacal in here, recover the health, which I did, and just to really be prepared for the final week. Because the other thing I've noticed is that if you have a damage module from 1 week, like additional damage modules in the following week won't add on. So basically, since we've got the damage section in the pilot, in the pilot or in the front part of the ship, what you can do first is actually, or what you can do if you've got the HP to spare in this scenario, is actually leave it alone and then deal with it with everyone in the final week. And of course, this allows you to put the healthiest people in first, and then everyone else, and then you can safely move everyone else in once you've completely repaired the module. Since I had 6 size banked, I could definitely use the amphetamine to help deal with that. So that's, yeah, I dare say I set myself up pretty safely for this, and thanks for the assist, we've avoided some injury as well. Although definitely the dice we have right now is definitely not all that useful. So trying to remember what I did here, but yeah, I just ended up putting them all into repair because I didn't want to use any research. I definitely wanted to save the possibility of using amphetamine for the final run. So with that, I'm just taking a quick look at what our options there. 1 assist, -1 dice. Or dirty stress for crew, 1 dice first, -1 dice. So again, funnily enough, our options were pretty not that bad actually, and despite all of them being being at maximum stress. So I dare say that was probably a bit lucky in my opinion. So nevertheless, the rest is pretty easy. Put everyone into the flight control, which I've been calling the pilot center. So putting everyone into the flight control, put the captain in, get as much repair done as possible, and hopefully, and also activate the no movement damage option so that everyone else can move into the ship safely. And from there on, it's pretty much smooth sailing. Move everyone else in that you need to, and the fact that because we can heal, we can completely repair this module also means that the ship itself won't be in any immediate danger when it takes damage. Means that we don't have to sacrifice anyone at all. We don't need to get any additional assists. And the funny thing is that it's very easy just to get into the flow of just rolling dice and then putting dice into research and then spending dice to just do things. When here, now that I'm completely 100% safe, as long as I don't do anything stupid, is that I can just quickly finish the deployment. So apart from that, again, I think my dice rolls have been fairly average, but there's definitely been some lucky ones, some very unlucky ones, and I feel that it's been a pretty average run. A pretty average successful run, and so I think some of the more interesting runs would be the ones where I've had really, really bad dice rolls, but still managed to get through in the end, and things like that. So with Pacal being the last person to deal with, and we should be impending damage. Well, as I said before, we're good to go. And yeah, so that means we're pretty much done, which makes me happy because basically I was just aiming to finish the run with joy. So just looking at the end screen, we've got 1635, which I think is pretty reasonable. It's not that great, mainly because I did end up relying on human meals to keep the dice topped up, and yeah, and especially the stress with the stress being at a fairly high level, that certainly contributed to that score as well. So I'm pretty happy. I also managed to finish a run with joy this time around, and so I'll be looking forward to unlocking the additional characters and finishing rounds with them. And then from there on, we might just randomize the crew, and then think about what other additional strategies we could do. So I'm pretty happy. And with that, thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next video.